Hello and welcome to the second episode in the Beginner's Guide to Total War 3 Kingdoms series. In the previous episode we covered the basic UI and interface as well as what the widgets mean. We did a little bit on diplomacy but not a lot. We covered the character types and the way their stats interact with their character types, for example which characters rely on which stats. And we covered ancillaries as well as the administrator, essentially having an administrator with a retinue in a garrison to try and bolster your defences. In this episode, the primary focus is going to be a battle tutorial. So this is essentially just going to be how to try and minimise losses and maximise casualties on the other side to ensure that your army is still in somewhat of a fighting form after the battle, because you may end up in situations where you have to fight multiple armies with a single army of yours, so it can be quite useful. Before we hop into the battle, I just want to show you this pane up here, which is to show or hide the detailed effects panel. If we click that, we can see as a court minister he'll give this buff, which is +1 dynasty influence. This isn't too important for the time being. With his brilliant trait, he does give minus 30% ammunition for all enemy units, which is very nice. But the main thing that we want to look at here is the army panel. Now, because he is a level 3 strategist, we have all of these different formations that he can essentially place the troops in. Unfortunately, until he's level 4, he does not get the turtle formation, which is really what we would like to have for this particular battle. But you can see he does also give plus 50% ranged firing rate, plus 10% melee evasion, military supplies, chance of ambushing. I mean, there's a lot of different buffs here that are given by a strategist. And for example, if we were to go on his son, Shizin, he does not give even nearly the amount of buffs that Shizir does with him being a champion. He does have his uses, of course. He is certainly a lot more powerful than Shizir in combat. But in terms of overall just buffing the army and letting you do things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to, champions are not really the best at doing that. So what we're going to do, and it's unfortunate we don't have the turtle formation because that is usually the best thing to try and minimise casualties from towers. We also don't have fire arrows because we need this particular skill in order to get it. So we will take some losses in this fight to the towers mainly, but we should still be able to work it out where we're not taking a massive amount of casualties. So we're going to jump into this battle. It will auto-save because I'm on legendary difficulty. If you're not on legendary difficulty, it won't automatically do that when you instigate a battle. But I believe, yeah, I think it's just legendary difficulty that actually implements that change. So we will start the battle and we'll see how we get on fighting Ying Xiao. Righto then. So, we can see straight away that he's got a lot of towers in this settlement. Towers on this game are very, very strong and they will wipe out your army if you're not careful. We certainly do not want to go in this way because you can see we're going to be getting fired on by essentially 6 towers. Yeah, so 6 towers there, and then another 4 if we were to make our way here. So we want to leave this alone. This way is not as bad, but again we're going to be getting fired on by at least 2, possibly 3 lots, so 4 or 6 because there's 2 towers per entrance, and that one actually overlaps there as well. So what we want to do is find the area where there's the least amount of towers that we possibly can. And I think for this settlement it's going to be here. Yeah, it's going to be this. This one as well. So there's this side. There's only 1 tower. They don't overlap. Well, yeah. As long as we're careful, we can stay out of the overlap for them too. So it's going to be much preferable to start the battle at this side and not deal with all of these towers as well as their troops, which he did have a few archers as well, so we'd be getting damage off them. And also what we're going to do is start our troops out in the trees, which I think the best place would probably be about here. Now what we want is for all of them to have this little eye symbol down by their character portrait. Now they don't, so we'll move them. See that this little icon there, it's not there, and if I put it there, it's got the little leaves icon. That means if I place them there, they're going to be hidden, and you'll see that they get this eye symbol there as well. Now what this means is my entire army is hidden, so the AI can't see where my troops are. They can't see that they're in them trees. This is quite useful because it means that they usually won't start out right in front of the area that you're actually attacking from. They essentially won't know which direction you're coming in from. It doesn't work 100% of the time, or it might just be chance that sometimes the AI guards the gate that you're hiding beside, but usually you can rely on it. So we'll start the battle. Yeah, so they are now expecting us to come in through the front, which would be a silly idea. And they've got all of their troops there ready to defend it. What we're going to do is we're going to take our generals and capture these towers. You've got the little flag icon there that comes over when you hover over this one. Will be easy to show you. The little flag icon in this zone behind the tower, which basically tells you that you can capture a particular building or tower. In this case, you've got it on the victory point here as well. If we were to take that, it reduces their morale. So once your general's within this zone, you can see they've now noticed that we're at the back and they're moving. That is because we were shot by the tower. And now this tower will start to be taken over with green, which is what we want. Once that's fully green, it means that we've essentially taken that tower and we won't be getting shot by it. Now this is when we want to move our troops in. We don't want them in the range of that tower. We want to attack them almost exclusively from this angle. We are taking that tower just really to keep them honest and to stop them from committing all of their army over here before we get our soldiers in position. And what we might actually do as well is see if he would like to duel. He does not. Right, okay.
It will please me to see you fall.
So we've got our soldiers coming out here. Now the first thing I would notice is that they have shock cavalry, which they're not very good shock cavalry, but in the early game they can be a problem, especially for ranged units like crossbowmen. Now obviously the counter to shock cavalry is spears, so we're going to get these guys. Chi militia is not particularly good. These guys are a lot better, although they're still not great. But they're the best we've got for the time being, so we're going to line them up in this place here. You can see the shock cavalry is already on its way. We are also going to try and counter that by getting our crossbows to start shooting at them, because they're going to go after him. Now, cavalry, shock cavalry particularly, is very weak to crossbows. If we can start firing on them, so we've got him on skirmish, that's why he's running away. We're going to start firing on these shock cavalry, and we'll get the... they're actually coming out of the settlement, which is unexpected. That's fine. They're going to run straight into the spears, and they're not going to last very long. So, yeah, brilliant. So now you see that they are starting to retreat. They are starting to take the tower again, but they're not going to be very successful with it. Our spears are going to pretty much take them out before they get the chance. I'll get the general back over there just to make sure that we are still maintaining our hold on this tower. And you can see they're coming towards him. We don't really want him over there. We want him over here to help us with this vanguard. The shock cavalry has now been apprehended essentially by our spears. We want the crossbows to stop firing because we don't want to be taking any casualties from our own men. That would be disastrous. And that does happen, by the way, if you're shooting into the back of your line, particularly with crossbows. You will find that you're doing a lot of damage to your own soldiers. Now they're sending their infantry round. The horsemen are now routing. This is what happens when your morale goes below 0. We are now going to get these two in here. We basically just want them in front of the tower. We don't want to be messing with their towers essentially. Their archers are starting to fire on us, so we're going to move the crossbows a little bit further forward. We're going to get the swords in shield wall and put them behind the spears. We are now taking some casualties with the spears. That can't be helped as we don't have the turtle formation, and we're going to put them in the hollowed square formation. That will allow us to get some melee evasion, and will also give us a charge reflection if they decide to bring their cavalry or their... Oh, dear me, I didn't realise he was up there. We do not want him up there. But the so the hollowed square will allow us to get some charge reflection if they decide to charge their generals or their horsemen in there. Please don't let your general go and try and be a one-man army if he's a strategist. If it's Lobo or somebody, fine, but not if it's a strategist. Okay, we want the swords now, going after their spears. We'll commit one unit to one unit. We'll get the champion in there as well. Crossbows, we will focus on their archers for now. The cavalry is not a big concern because they're essentially going to be, at least in large part, they're going to be put off by the spears. I don't know where they're going. We want him within the range of them just to get this passive buff. We will use his special ability, which is Hamstring, which essentially does some splash damage. We are also going to tell the swords to stand their ground. That means that when these spears run away, which they will shortly, which now they're already starting to waver, it essentially just means that they won't follow them into their lines. Their archers are now running out of ammunition. They've all but ran out already, so we don't really need to worry about them anymore. We will focus all of our fire on this lot, although they are low on ammunition as well. We've lost more of these spears than I would have liked. Part of that is because they were so aggressive in dashing out, and I wasn't really prepared for it. I expected them to more than likely... Oh, yeah, so because these are in melee combat as well, they've come out with the hollowed square formation. But they do still provide a significant charge negation with them being spears units to the cavalry. So they've charged in there, but they've actually taken quite a lot of damage in doing it. Now, the archers have now completely routed. That's why this flag has now gone grey. They've still got another archer unit over here, which possibly even have full ammunition. I don't anticipate them dashing these generals in just yet because they're basically they're cavalry to a degree. We will keep the champion there just in case, but we will take Chasseur round here. To let you know how I actually planned his path manually there, you hold the shift key and drag with the left, with the right mouse button. I did this in the last tutorial as well. I don't know why I keep doing that on these tutorials, but yeah, so you hold the shift key and drag with the right mouse button, and that will tell the general or the character or unit or whatever the case may be exactly which path you want them to take. We will get these in a shield wall behind them just to try and protect them a little bit more because this unit suffered quite a lot of damage. We'll get them back in a shield wall as well because I believe these archers still have ammunition, and it would be nice to be able to deflect some of those arrows. We're going to use Chasseur essentially as cavalry. He's a strategist, so he's not going to be tremendous in terms of his damage, but the archers will probably be trying to skirmish, and the archer militia in particular are not a very strong unit at all. They're a very early game unit. You probably wouldn't use them unless you absolutely had to. So we should be able to do some decent damage to these guys, especially because they've got no other generals around here. Now you see we're in a little bit of a stalemate here because we've got two spear units and they've got essentially cavalry and spear units left. We've got the swords behind them as well, which makes those spears hesitant to actually rush in, although they still might. And the generals basically don't want to get unhorsed. That will happen if the generals get caught by spears quite often. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to start focusing on their... We're going to tell them to stand ground as well and see if we can focus on their spear units and get rid of them as well. Now it looks like they're maybe bringing these archers forward as... No, I thought they were going to bring them forward as melee units. And again, this stand ground function is useful because they will probably break fairly soon. And we don't really want the archers to start following them and trying to shoot at them, because if they do, they're going to get caught by these cavalry and generals. We've routed that archer unit with our general, so we'll get him in here now, and we are going to be taking damage off that tower if we go there. So actually no, and they're bringing the cavalry around. So this is when we want to get him out of there. We do not want him in any kind of confrontation with spears or cavalry. He could probably take that strategist. But I'd rather not get him in any combat that's not going to be completely one-sided towards him. So we'll get him back round there. That speed unit has now routed. They are bringing another one round, which we'll probably be able to get with the crossbows as well. This archer unit, for some reason, has decided to be melee fighters, so we'll quickly get the swords on them.
The enemy unit flees.
And yeah, that's them. Yeah, well, there's no point now, so we'll send them back. We'll hit them in the back with a few arrows and just try and get them to rout completely. As you can see, they're orange at the minute, which means they're wavering. They're not interested in fighting, but they haven't completely broken yet. They will soon, once they start getting pelted with these arrows. Yep, there you go. So it's changed to grey. You can now tell them to stop and not waste your ammunition. We now want to focus our fire heavily on these cavalry units. We'll get them back into shield wall. This also gives, as well as blocking ranged attacks to an extent, 35%, it also negates charges and gives charge resistance as well. So that's when the cavalry charges into you, you take much less damage if you're in a shield wall formation. That's the cavalry now routed. We will now focus our fire on the Chi militia. They shouldn't last very long. They're probably going to take a lot of damage, to be completely honest, in a very short period of time. We won't be able to take advantage of this just now, but you will see that cavalry unit just went into loose formation. It's when you saw this symbol. Now, when they're in loose formation, they are very, very vulnerable to charges. When you've got some decent cavalry units, they're not in... Yeah, they are in Helmet Square. When you've got some decent cavalry units, sometimes it can be a very good tactic to actually hammer them with arrows so that they go into loose formation, and then you send your cavalry in and charge them while they're loose, and you can rack up crazy amounts of cavalry. Your cavalry or your general, whichever you decide to use. We'll send him back round there because they've got their troops here. We're now wasting arrows shooting at an enemy that's already routed. We'll focus on them. We'll get this general to go around here and take out what's left of these archers, hopefully without sustaining too much damage. They're now gone into loose. They're not wavering quite yet, and we are running a little bit low on ammunition, but I think we should have enough to just finish off this cavalry unit. Yeah, so they're wavering now.
The men have no ammunition.
Brilliant. Okay, and yeah, we've now essentially finished off. It's pretty much useless to shoot at generals because they will typically evade. However, the ones with the low health, sometimes you can get lucky. We've got no units left basically to kill other than these archers, which we've got the general on, and since we've got a little bit of ammunition left, we will shoot at the strategist and see if we can just take her out with the arrows. It's unlikely, but it's worth a try, since we've got nothing else to use that ammunition for now anyway. So how's he getting on over here? He is getting on fairly well, but he's stuck on a tree, it would seem. So are they. Right, so let's, yeah, so they're now wavering, that's good. She is taking some damage now from these crossbows. We're not going to be able to do her a tremendous amount of damage. He's actually taking some damage as well. He must be getting hit with the straight arrows. So we might actually be able to get rid of her before our ammunition runs out, but we don't have much left.
The enemy warriors are
Yeah,
ready.
brilliant. Okay, let's see if we can get them to rout completely. They are just wavering at the minute. She's now wavering. Okay, we're literally now just... Yeah, okay, so now she's running away. He's now losing morale as well. We're probably going to get a victory in a couple of seconds. Yeah, there you go. They've both now broken, and we got a victory, and I'm pretty sure that should be decisive. Though the game might class that as close because of the amount of ammunition we used and the amount of casualties we suffered on these spearmen. No, it was decisive. Right, that's lovely. So we'll end battle. And you can see here that we have got the basic statistics of the battle. So they lost 783. We didn't kill every single one of their soldiers, but the main reason they lost all of them is simply because we've conquered the settlement. If this was a fielded battle, they may have another opportunity to come back, and or we may have another opportunity to finish the rest of them off. Now you can see it's got deployed, lost, remaining, enemy captured. So enemy captured basically breaks down to how much replenishment that you may be able to get, and also if you capture generals you can potentially employ them, execute them, or take their items, or release them for gold. We have a few different options here. We can occupy, loot and occupy, or sack and withdraw. You don't really want a population to be too diminished after you finish attacking a city unless you took next to no casualties, because it'll stop your replenishment from being as high, and if you do need to fight shortly after, you're going to have a lot of problems. The faction support is tied to your public order, so when you first take a settlement, there will be a period of transition between the settlement being owned by them and the people being loyal to them and the people being loyal to you. If you've got this plus 10 faction support, it just means that you get a handle on public order a little bit more quickly, and you reduce the risk of rebellions. It also gives you plus 10 military supplies, which can be useful if you've been on a long campaign far from your territory, but in this case we're not too concerned with that. The loot and occupy option obviously will decrease the population. You'll get a small amount of income. The people in the settlement will not like you very much. You do get much more military supplies because you essentially raid them, and the settlement level will be reduced. So if that's a city, it will be reduced to a town. If it's a town, it'll be reduced to a village. It'll just be less effective essentially. This option can be useful if you don't have a lot of spare food and you'd like to take a settlement, but you know it will give you a food deficit. You can loot and occupy and get a little bit of income while also downgrading the level of the settlement. The sack and withdraw options really just if you don't want it. It'll give you the most. It'll give you the most money. The faction support will go down, but if you don't own it, it's not particularly. It shouldn't really bother you too much. The settlement level will be reduced the same as this as well. For this purpose, we are just going to occupy this, and we'll give it a second to save. So this faction has now. There's been a succession, essentially because we killed the faction leader. She's now become the faction leader. So it's now, instead of it being called Ying Xiao, it's now called Ao Ting Ping. So we'll get rid of that, and the next step is going to be to get over there and try and take this, and this as quickly as possible, and we will then have removed the threat from this area at least, and we've got this area and this area still to be concerned about. So the first thing we're going to do is, in fact, I don't think there's not much else we can do this term, but we can recruit a few more of these. I wonder how close he is to leveling up. He is almost there, actually, so that could be something we could take advantage of. We don't really want these sea infantry, so we'll replace them, which will help us out with the replenishment a little bit. We will keep these guys for now, just because we can't get a full stack of these. Although, it might be worth actually getting the last lot of them that we can get with this turn's income. And that'll give us a decent... Once they've replenished a little bit, it'll give us a decent little retinue that we can go over here with afterwards and try and take that. I think it might take us about 2 turns to get over there. We can... Yeah, so that's 1. Yeah, it's going to take us at least 2 turns to get over to Yulin. We can't afford any more units this particular turn. We've got... Yeah, that's constructor upgraded building. We did receive the Earth Dragon title, which is because we lost less than 200 men in the last battle. To explain how the title system works, we covered this to some level in the first video, but the title system essentially will help with satisfaction, as we discussed, but it will also help with certain buffs and abilities that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. So for example, Earth Dragon is very good for a commander type character, reduces penalty from higher office, which is great because that's one of the main reasons people get upset. We've not actually got anyone at the minute who is upset about not having a high core position, but it also makes them immune to scaring. That's very useful because the scare morale debuff is quite powerful. We won't be giving it to him, obviously, because he's a champion. He relies mostly on resolve, or at least instinct. Authority, while it's decent for him, especially because he's got the frontline troops, it's not the best to be given to a champion, at least not at the minute, and definitely not when it's going to cost us an extra 200 gold that we don't need to spend right now. So we will we'll end the turn there, and we'll see what happens in the in between this turn and next. Right, so we've now had the event triggered, the Declawing of the Tiger. Sun Jian is killed by Huang Zu at the Battle of Xinyang, cut down in a hail of arrows. Well, I was going to go into a little bit more detail about this, but I do have a lore series on it which actually spells out pretty much exactly what happened in this story. Very, very nice little story behind Sun Jian, even if it had a tragic end. We won't get into it too much here, but I do recommend you check that out. We've got... let's see what characters we've got. Yeah, so the other thing is you get this character developments widget at the start of most turns. This will tell you essentially people who have come to your court in large part to pledge their service to you. Now other factions can recruit these characters as well, but typically if they're there on your turn, they will be available for your recruitment. There's nobody necessarily that's particularly useful on this turn. It is worth checking this quite regularly. Sometimes you will get unique characters. For example, if let's take one of the more well-known factions. In fact, we don't really know many of them, but let's say Dong Zhuo, his faction was destroyed next turn, but he survived. Le Bu, for example, survived. What would then happen is, if they weren't captured, there's a good chance they would show up in the candidates pool here. Which means you can actually recruit Le Bu, you can recruit Dong Zhuo, you can recruit his wife, whoever you like really, whoever's in that faction when it was destroyed, who didn't die or get captured, will show up here. So it can be very good to check this and just see who's knocking about in that candidate pool, because you can get some fantastic characters. I've, in my current live stream with Shi, I managed to get Gong Sun Zan, Zhao Yun, and Ma Chao from the candidates list, so it's definitely worth checking that whenever you get the chance. There wasn't much happened in that turn. Typically that's fairly standard for the early game. We didn't get a lot of pop-ups to say so and so declared war, etc., or made peace. You often won't in the early game. So before we continue, what we're going to do is take another set of them spearmen. I really like them spearmen, and as soon as he's level 4 I can show you why. So we've got here, we can still get a building, but I think it's just, yeah, so tax collection will give you a little bit of income at the cost of public order, but it will also it also costs 0, so it can be quite a good thing to get early on if you're struggling for money. I mean, we're not really at the minute. We've got 1,000 coming in. I think we've got space for another trade deal. Yeah, we do. So we'll see if anyone wants to do that. Dong Zhuo. Again, it's so risky to trade with him in the early game, but we don't have anyone immediately that we can trade with. However, we will be capturing a port fairly soon. Quite often the ports particularly will open up new trade routes, so I think we'll wait until we've captured that before we potentially make that deal with Dong Zhuo. We can't really show off a lot of the buildings just now. I mean, we've got the grain storage building, which again adds reserves and gives public order. We could get government support, but this is really a commandery that's very heavily focused on commerce income. What would be nice here would be probably a marketplace. That would probably be the best. That would probably be the best building to put in here. So it gives you a 50% income from commerce, plus 10 trade influence. That's going to be nice because we've got this building here already that buffs commerce. We've also got a lumber yard and a tea house. Now, tea house will be commerce income, and the lumber yard will be peasantry income. So tax collection wouldn't be the worst idea here, but again, at the cost of public order, especially in the early game, it's not really worth it in my opinion. This will give us a buff from commerce as well. I think we'll get that actually. There's no harm in it. And we're now out of money. What we're going to do is just move these guys a little bit closer to his territory. And you see here, this is the extent to which we can move into our Ping's territory. Now, we don't want to necessarily be in their territory just yet, because if we go here, which is still in our within our borders, we will still be able to continue to replenish, and next turn, we're probably going to be able to get... Yeah, so that's turn 2. We will be able to reach that quite easily. And if we did go over the border in the meantime, we would lose the replenishment and we would have less soldiers. What we're going to do as well, this is something unique to Scherzer, we will take the Industrialist Chest. The Industrialist Chests will give you -2 construction time in the local commandery. Not too concerned with that. What we are concerned with, though, is plus 15% replenishment for own armies in local commandery. So we'll take that, since we've got enough splendor to do it now. And the other thing with these chests is, once you apply it to a general or to a character, it will be locked to that character until it expires, and it takes 20 turns to expire. So it is something that, to some degree, you've got to think about before you actually apply it to somebody. We can stand losing that for the time being, so we'll give them the chest. And you'll see now that the replenishment, I probably should have mentioned this before, but you can see the little yellow line there that shows the replenishment, and we've got a plus 15% boost from characters. So we'll have slightly more men than we would have otherwise. We've also got a tech reform. So if we take a look at the tech tree, we want to take the reform that would be the most beneficial to us. So we can't even fill all of the trade agreements that we've got at the minute. So that's probably not going to be too useful. That may be useful, but again, it's based around trade. That one's probably the one we're going to take. That's not particularly useful until you start getting a lot of characters. If you have quite a few characters, especially ones that are getting paid a lot, if you take that, it can be quite a nice boost to your income. So I think this makes the most sense, since the majority of our income is coming from commerce and will come from commerce in future. So we will take that. That's bumped it up by just 42 gold. That will become a lot more relevant as we build out these settlements. If you look at the main income, it's commerce there. It's also commerce there. This is a trade port and a spice market, so it's going to be commerce there. And this is actually industry, but I'm not sure whether we're actually going to take that. We do have a use for this, and we will conquer it, but whether we're going to run it is another story, and we'll get onto that probably in the next episode. But all of this is heavily geared towards commerce. This side's a little bit more peasantry. It's got a lumberyard. The majority of our income, though, even if you look at the treasury, is oh, it actually doesn't break it down in I actually thought it did break it down in commerce, etc. there, but it doesn't. Looks like you've got to go through the individual. Oh, there we go. Yes, it does. My mistake. So you can see there your total income: 341 commerce, 39 peasantry, and obviously trade is adding a lot to us right now. Which is why it would be nice to get that spice market as well. Not just the spice market, but the salt mine. Any resources that you have that other factions don't, you will essentially earn a premium on. So it's very useful to do that. So we've got the replenishment. We've spent our splendor on the chest. We've got 0 money in the treasury, which is never good, but it'll do for now. We've got 1,000 odd coming in next turn. And we've got this garrison fairly well protected, as well as a building to buff our commerce income in Jiaozi. And we've also taken the tech reform that will boost our commerce income as well. So we can now end that turn. And straight away we notice that we've got Zhang Min leaving our faction. That's essentially because he was unhappy with not being part of the Shi family, I believe was his problem. But that's fine. I mean, we've now removed the low satisfaction buff, and we've got rid of his salary as well. We weren't really using him, so it's not a massive loss. We do have a Chancellor position available. We've got nobody really qualified to take that position yet, and I say that in a subjective manner. I mean, you can give that slot to anyone. We will cover the court and the family tree a little bit more in a future episode, but basically what I mean is we've got nobody I'd like to put in that post for the time being. We've got a lot more money now. We can't... Oh, yes, we can. Right, I think what we'll do then... how close are you now to leveling up? Right, so he's very close. There's a good chance he may actually level up next turn if we keep that school there. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. So I'm going to get archers as opposed to crossbows. Because when he levels up, we're... Oh, in fact, no we're not. I was going to say we're going to take this skill, which will give us fire arrows, but we can't actually do that next turn. The way the skill tree works is when your general levels up, you can choose one of these options, but you can only choose it in line with what you've already got. So, for example, next turn we will have the option, because we've got these three and that one already, we would be able to choose either this, 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 or this. So you can choose any slot that's beside one that you've already picked. It's like a chain. We want this, which will give us access to night battles and also give us access to fire arrows. That would be very nice. Unfortunately, nobody in our faction has it at the moment. So, we'll make do with what we've got for the time being. Those archers are now replenishing, so we can make it to Yulin. If we look at their garrison, which is Tantong, there's not many of them, so we should be able to take them out pretty easily. Let's put them under siege. The game will freeze while it saves, and then for now we will just starve them out. We are going to attack them, but this just allows you to basically make that move, get your guy in place, and then go and see what else you need to do. You can keep them under siege if you'd like and try to have them suffer attrition. It's not really worth doing with a garrison that small. Just seeing if there's anything else that I would like to do before we finish this turn. I don't think there is. So, perhaps how much would it cost to raise another army here in Zhuwen? Yeah, too much. It would be nice to have some protection here, because right now we've got next to nothing. We've got an enemy here and our army's over here, so I think that's going to be a priority next turn. We'll probably get him to try and take away his low satisfaction and give him something to do. We may also look at hiring somebody from here as well. For now, we will complete this battle.
Crush them!
Now, we don't have the ability to do night battles or fire arrows, so we'll start the battle. Now, we've got... Really, this settlement doesn't really have a weak point. We've got 2 towers there, we've also got another one there. And we've got 2 there, so I think, to be honest, the best way to attack this is going to be through this tower here. It leaves us very little wiggle room, which is unfortunate. I think what we're going to do is use the generals again as the cavalry and get them to come right round the back and go in this tower here. The main army will have outside of here, just outside the range of the tower. If in an ideal world we would have him at level 4, these guys would then have the turtle formation, which would make this a lot easier. But we're probably going to have to cover that in another video, because he doesn't seem to want to level up very quickly. You can actually accelerate the leveling of your generals, which I probably could have done a bit more effectively with him so far in this tutorial, just by running down fleeing enemies. In fact, we'll do that at the end of this battle, just to try and make sure, if there's any of them left. The archers we will have out here for now. We don't really want any of our guys to be anywhere near these towers. They can be disastrous to your army. So I think what we're going to do is we'll get them right on the verge of the tower's range, though, just to make sure that the enemy is threatened. Oh, we can't do that. Yeah, this is the other thing as well. This green line on the battlefield represents your deployment zone. So this, anywhere within this green line, or within these green lines, you can deploy your troops. If you have somebody like him, where they've got this arrow, it means he's able to do guerrilla deployment, which means you can put him in between the green and red. The red is their deployment zone. However, you can't put him inside their deployment zone, and you can't put him in water, full stop. But there are restrictions on it. You can't just put him anywhere. Basically, this white line, if it's surrounded by a white line, then you're fine. You can do it with guerrilla deployment. If it's not, if it's got a red line or it's got no line, then you probably can't. But usually the best way to test it is just to see whether or not you get that little red X when you're trying to deploy him somewhere. Now, I don't really want to put these guys out in the open. I think we'll put them in there. Try and make sure that they're both hidden. Because I don't want any troops around here, really. Although, what might be quite useful is to see if we can get the archers around there as well. So we'll first of all, we put them in type formation, just so that we can get them hidden a little bit more effectively. So that's them two. Oh no, they're not. Can be a little bit tricky, this, to try and figure out exactly where they're. So we've got now the eye symbol on both of them, meaning that they're both hidden. And we've got the generals there, again, the eye symbol on both of them, so they're hidden. So to the enemy, all they'll be able to see is this group of soldiers here. Which should mean, if we start battle, that, yeah, they've got all of their guys here ready to defend against this incoming force. Now, they're probably going to start moving a little bit when they notice we've got people over here as well. But I'm hoping that's going to be a little bit too little, a little bit too late. So we will get him first to run over there. The generals still do take damage from towers, but not nearly as much as the units do. So, with any luck, we won't lose too much health, and we will be able to take these two towers and get our archers around the back of them. This might be a bit of an issue. We're going to have to take this one as well. Again, if we had that skill with the fire arrows, we could actually burn all of these towers down with the archers before we even got in here. Yeah, he must have been shot by the tower. That's fine. He obviously hasn't lost a great deal of health. So now it's just a case of waiting for them to get up to those towers and capture them. I think what we'll do as well is, while we're waiting for that, we will, in fact, no, not quite. Yeah, okay. Just a note as well, you can use this function here, toggle group, or G, to essentially group different types of units together. You can then use 1 or 2 keys to switch between the groups quite quickly. That can be very, very useful. We'll get the archers over here now. Now you can see they are starting to approach us. I'm not sure what their plan is. If their plan is to bring a bunch of archers over here and try to defeat our champion, they've got another thing coming. Let's take a look at their range. So to get to grips with what some of these things mean, you've got 200 range there, which is Archer Captain. They're fairly self-explanatory. If you hover over them, they will tell you what each of the individual stats do. When you first see it in game, it may look like this. If you press this panel, you can then see the expanded stats, which are somewhat more informative, I think. Whoa, dear me, I left him up there. I keep leaving him places and he's taking all kinds of damage. So we'll get him in here and see if we can take that tower. I really don't know what their plan is here. They're now outside of the range of that tower, so what we're going to do is quickly charge the general into them. The archers are now almost within range of their swords, and they're not taking damage from the tower because it's green and we've taken it. We're going to charge into this group of archers. Once we're in the middle of them, we're going to use the hamstring attack. Brilliant, so that's them wavering already. We're also capturing this tower. Make sure that he continues to go after them. They're still not in the range of that tower, which is great news.
What cowards!
And because we've captured this tower now, we will just let them take damage from it on the way out. We'll get these archers in here. And since they're so obsessed with going over there, we might as well take this tower. Is that them back? Yeah. Right, okay. Once these archers get here, we should be able to probably get them to rout again. Oh, we've got another swords unit coming up here. So what we're tempted to swing these all the way around and get them to come in this way, but I'm not sure. They'll take a long time to get all the way around there. That's fine. I mean, they're coming after him now because they want that tower back. But I mean, they can have it back if they really want. I was just trying to distract them away from the show. So we will take him off melee mode, which means he can now fire. We'll tell him to fire at will. So if a general has a bow, they can also essentially be an archer, and some of them have very nice archery skills. That's brilliant. They're now coming over here. They're almost within our range. Not quite, but almost. Let's see if we can get them swords with that set of archers. Now these do have some missile defense, so they won't be entirely easy to take out with archers. But as long as we're making casualties, that should be fine. We're not making a great deal of casualties, mind. Right, I think what we're going to do now, they look like they're going to come up towards these. And it looks like we're also taking damage from these archers as well. Now they are going towards Shazza. I'm not sure what their plan is entirely, but they're not taking a tremendous amount of damage from us. Where are them other archers? Yeah, there they are. Are they shooting at my soldiers? No, but I think they want to. What we're going to do then is bring the swords to the front in a shield wall. Now this will not protect you very effectively against the tower, but it will against an archer militia. Okay, I think we need to refocus our fire on them. We'll hamstring them. We'll get him out the way. And again, they can take that tower if they really want. The whole purpose of this was just to try and get our archers close enough to do some damage without taking damage from the tower, although we've lost quite a few of them. We lost 36 to that archer captain. Yeah, but we are now taking this sword unit out. They're coming back for the champion. We'll get Shurza to give him a charge. While he's routing, we will get the archers after them. These archers are taking a tremendous amount of punishment without many morale hits. What we're going to do is actually get away from them and... yeah, okay, they are now... What on earth are they doing? Right, I don't know what they're doing, but they're outside of the tower's range, so we are most certainly going to chase them. Okay, that's them now routed. We are now focusing all of our fire on these swordsmen. We do want our generals to go back down here and just try and prevent these archers from taking any additional damage. Hopefully before the ammunition runs out we can get these guys to rout. They're already wavering, that's good. We are taking them out quite effectively now that we're on the flank, we're on the side essentially. Yep, brilliant. We will get Shurza to take that tower while he continues to try and get them to rout. Looks like we've got them up there pretty dead to rights. We'll stop them shooting now for the time being. Because what we're going to do, once we've got these archers routing, or once we've taken that tower I should say, is we don't want to be in the range of that really either. We'll go after these guys first. We just want to stop them. This is the edge of the battlefield, this black line here. And we don't want them to get to that. Because once they get to the edge of the battlefield, that's when they can actually retreat. We want to run them down to essentially improve his experience and get him to level 4 as quickly as possible. We might not be able to get both groups, but we might not need both groups actually. There's 48 there. If we can get him to kill all of them, we'll get him to finish those archers off. And it's basically just easy experience once you well, it serves multiple purposes. Not so much in a settlement battle, but in general. If you can get your generals to run down fleeing units, one, it decreases the size of the army. So, for example, if you diminished an army by defeating them, but they still had quite a few troops left, you may have to deal with that army again in the future, possibly alongside some of their allies or reinforcements. So it decreases the size of the army and reduces the chances that you're going to have to face them again, while you're inflicting casualties without taking any. is another brilliant thing. But it also gives your generals more experience, because this casualty count counts towards their experience total. So if you can get your generals to run them down in big groups while they're running away, the general's not taking any damage, they're not under any kind of threat, and you're actually getting the experience to level them up. We may not be able to get to them in time because he is now exhausted. So we're going to speed it up a little bit and see if we can just manage to get them, charge at them before they get outside of the battle zone. We might make it actually. Yeah, it looks like we're going to, because for some reason they changed direction. So brilliant. We will just mop them up nicely. You'll see here the casualty total is racking up pretty quick. Okay. That's great. So they're pretty much done now. There's only 12 of them left. Might as well finish them off. That'll do. So we'll claim victory. We've got a decisive victory. And we'll see if we've managed to get Chasseur to level 4 in just a moment. Right. So we've occupied Tanzong. Which brings us now to a decent little wedge we've made in the borders, which were previously occupied by all enemies. Mulu is fairly friendly to us. We got 6 turns left there on the food income. I'm still a little bit nervous about him. He could be a problem, but we've nearly gotten rid of this guy, or this girl even. Now, Chasseur, unfortunately... Oh, yes, he did. I was just about to say he didn't level up to level 4, unfortunately. But he did. So, you will actually... We'll take this opportunity to look at how the level ups are displayed. First of all, this arrow is the best indicator, and obviously the fact that he's now shown as 4 instead of 3. But you will also see here, on the character pane, you've got 2... This purple bit here is telling you got 2 notifications that you might be interested in with your characters. So if we open up the character panel, one of them is that he is dissatisfied. We knew about that anyway. We knew he wasn't very happy. The other one is that Chasseur has leveled up and is now available to take another skill. So we'll open that up, and we want to be working towards this as quickly as we can. So we'll take the precision, which will give some more ranged damage and ranged firing rate. So that's going to be very useful for those archers we just recruited. We'll apply that. Next level, when he gets up to level 5, which he's not that far away from really. 18.7 thousand out of 30,000 isn't too far to go. But we do want this as quickly as we can. It's very, very useful for taking settlements. The other thing is, if we come back over here to the detailed effects panel, you can see now that he is level 4. He enables the formation of turtle. Now, this is not something that we're going to be able to get to in this particular video, unfortunately, just due to the length. But next time, we will be going over here to Guangyu, and we will show you basically why the turtle formation is so useful, and why strategists in general, and commanders to some degree, are very, very useful in taking settlements, and why these spears units are very good as well. You can see now, because we're actually in a settlement, we've got plus military supplies, basic replenishment rate, and the plus 15 boost from characters. It's given us now 2 pluses, which means that we're replenishing at a fairly decent rate. So we're going to leave this particular episode here for now, and next time, like I say, we'll make some inroads on this, finally get rid of her. And we'll reveal why these guys are so useful when they're paired with one of these, who is at least level 4. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye now. Thanks again for watching. If you found the video to be enjoyable or informative, please remember to hit the like button, and if you want to see more of this kind of content, please subscribe. As always, you're welcome to join me on Twitch for regular Total War 3 Kingdoms live streams, usually starting around 9 PM UK time. The link to my Twitch channel will be in the description. Thanks again.